Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie. Happy Valentine's Day. Today I'm going to be the moderator for the service in my recovery workshop today. Please help me open with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Today, our speakers are Jan from Region 4 and Deborah from Region 1. We want to welcome them. We'll be talking about tradition and concept number 2. And in case you are not familiar, for the tradition 2 is for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself on our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. And the principle behind that is trust. Concept number 2 is the OA groups have delegated to the World Service Business Conference the active maintenance of our world services. Thus, the World Service Business Conference is the voice, authority, and effective conscience of OA as a whole, and the principle behind that is conscience. Our topic today is who's in charge? The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of Overeaters Anonymous and the pamphlet, The 12 Concepts of OA Service, are great resources for more information about the traditions and concepts and are available at the OA bookstore, which can be found on the OA website, www.oa.org. To stay in harmony with traditions 6 and 10, we ask that the speakers and members who share mentioned only OA-approved literature. There will be time after each speaker for sharing. This workshop has been recorded and will be posted on the OA website podcast page as well as other podcast feeds such as iTunes. If you speak, it's considered implied consent to have your voice and your share recorded and posted. To preserve your anonymity, please use only your first name or a fictitious name when you share. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, and even though this is a virtual meeting, please help us support carrying the message through Overeaters Anonymous. Our special workshop meeting number is 82278. Please use that when you make your contribution. You can either go to www.oa.org and click on the contribution button up at the top, or you can also mail your donations to the World Service Business Office at P.O. Box 44020, Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Please use that meeting number 82278. It helps us track how many people are listening to the workshop or the podcast and contributing to the OA office. Thank you for helping us carry the message. So I'm going to start out with Jan. So I'd like to introduce Jan from Region 1, who's going to be our first speaker. Go ahead, Jan. Just press *6 to unmute.
Thanks, Stephanie, so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Jan, and I'm a grateful food addict, and I'm abstinent today by the grace of God and the miracle of Overeaters Anonymous. I currently have 14 years, 11 months, and 14 days of blessed God abstinence, and I maintain a 150-pound weight loss. I'd like to share with you a bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. What it was like. I truly believe I was born a food addict. I always felt different from everyone, and I never felt like I fit in. I was that fat girl all through school, and many people picked on me, and they made fun of me. I hated myself, and I wished I was dead most of the time, even when I was a little girl. In grade school, I found food, and it became everything to me, if you know what I mean. It became my best friend, my confidant, my comforter, my savior, my parents that I really never had emotionally. It did for me what nothing else had ever done for me up to that point in my life. In 1983, I came to OA and another 12-step program for alcohol and drugs. And I did well for the first 6 months. But then I relapsed with food, and I was in and out of OA for 18 years. And I hope no one else ever has to go through that like I did. I would get abstinent and then let it go. At one time, I had 4 years of abstinence, and then I let it go. Another time, 2 years, let it go. Another time, 1 year, and let it go. And it was crazy, and it became a living hell for me. For those 18 years, I had the powerlessness, the insanity, and consequences like AA's founder Bill Wilson had when he was in his disease of alcoholism. What happened in those 18 years of being in and out was totally crazy. And these are just some of my consequences, insanity and unmanageability. I became a chronic late-stage food addict. I was eating and purging from the moment I got up to the minute I went to bed. I was in the hospital twice, long-term, and 2 long-term treatment centers and halfway house due to my disease. I stole money and things from family, friends, and roommates and employers to support my food addiction and habits. For 4 years, I had nowhere to go, and so I ended up living in a local YWCA. I was homeless. If it hadn't been for that YWCA, I would have been out on the street. I also stole from the other homeless women there to survive. I had to go through 2 bankruptcies and let my brand new car get repossessed because binging and purging was more important for me than being responsible for my bills and making my car payment. Let's see, I ended up in 2 psych wards and had to have 12 electric shock therapies due to depression, and that was caused by my food addiction and the insanity of my disease. Binging while driving one time, I hit a girl on a bike and she went flying. The police and witnesses said it wasn't my fault because she pulled out in front of me. But we all know if I would have been paying attention and wouldn't have been binging and had my hand in a bag of something, I wouldn't have hit her. I got up to size 28 and I weighed 260 pounds, and I'm only 5'1". I was so worried about, God, where am I going to get clothes to fit? They weren't fitting anymore, and I really worried about that. I couldn't fit in restaurant booths or movie theater seats anymore because I'd gotten so big. It was so humiliating, and I felt so bad for my husband because he'd want to go to the movies and go out to eat, and I couldn't go because I couldn't fit in the seating. There are so many more consequences, and I could go on, but I think you get the picture. Finally, in 2001, I hit bottom, hopefully for the last time. I wasn't drinking and drugging all those 18 years, but the insanity for food was crazy, and the food quit working, and wanting to drink and drug again over the food came, and that terrified me. I knew it was it. I knew that it was in and out of OA or do or die. The choice was mine. So I thank God from the bottom of my heart for helping me to hit bottom and being willing to go to any length for food in my disease. If you would have told me to go across the street and eat dog food, I would have. And I really believe God did help me hit bottom because I kept asking, God, please help me hit bottom. Please help me hit bottom. So that was an answer to prayer. I really believe today I am truly abstinent by the grace of God and the miracle and the fellowship of Overeaters Anonymous. Some members come to OA for vanity, but I can honestly say I came for sanity and I stay for sanity. I don't ever want to be crazy with the food and in my disease like that again. I know I don't have another abstinence in me. I know this is it. So I take this very seriously. I would love to say there's a secret to being abstinent for almost 15 years and maintaining 150 pounds of weight loss. But the secret is there is no secret, you guys. It really is what they tell us at our first meetings we go to. They told me to go to meetings whether I wanted to or not. They told me to get a sponsor and work the steps and traditions with that sponsor. They told me to find a food plan that eliminates my binge and trigger foods and the behaviors that cause me problems. They told me to follow that food plan no matter what because my life depended on it, and it still does. Make phone calls, read OA conference-approved literature, write, have an action plan, do service, and practice anonymity. So I did those things, and I still do those things. Thank you to the God of my understanding. I believe today that I'm just as powerless over food as the day I got in here in February 28, 2001. I'm probably more powerless because I have less denial and delusion about my disease. And now I'd like to say and talk about what it was like today after being abstinent by working the steps and the traditions and using all the 9 tools of OA. I have an awesome husband, a family and friends and relatives and clients who love me, and I can love and care about them because of OA. We have 2 cars today, and we have 4 Harley-Davidsons with insurance. No repossessions in the future. We have checking and savings accounts with money in them and no credit card debt. I had gotten us up to $37,000 worth of credit card debt, and that was one of the reasons I had to go through bankruptcies. I have a home that I share with my husband and 2 dogs and 2 cats, and I don't have to live or stay in one room to survive like I did at that YWCA. I get to house and pet sit for friends and for people when they go on vacation. That's where I'm at right now. I'm at a client's home. They trust me with their pets, homes, and belongings. They never have to worry about me stealing and taking their credit cards or checkbooks. And they leave these things around. I find them all the time. And I just think, God, if you people knew who I was and what my background was. But it feels so good not to have to worry about that. Emotionally, I'm better than I've ever been. I haven't been in a psych ward or electric shock therapy since I got abstinent. I can still struggle with depression, but I get outside help for that, and I never have to use food to deal with it in the last 18 years. I'm very grateful for that. I could go on and on and on about this. I guess there's a few more things. God in my abstinence is the most important thing in my life today, without exception. The God of my understanding loves me more than I will ever know or truly understand. I wouldn't be alive today without God or OA. I found my loving God in OA and all the answers to my questions. When I was little, I'd say, God, what's wrong with me? Please help me. I remember praying that over and over again, and I'm just grateful to say today I know what's wrong with me, and my loving God has helped me. I have the disease of food addiction, and I'm a food addict, and I'm powerless over food, and my life is unmanageable when I try to have power over it or control. But I've come to believe in a power greater than me that can restore me to sanity, and I am willing to turn it over to God to the best of my ability, one day at a time and one meal at a time. In closing, I'd like to say to my fellow compulsive overeaters and food addicts out there, please keep coming back no matter what. Keep coming back until the OA miracle happens for you. If it can happen for me, it can happen for you. If you're just willing to work the program and willing to find a power greater than yourself, you can be restored to sanity. And for that, thank you for letting me share my story, which I'm always grateful to be able to do. And now the topic, who's in charge? Well, I'm pretty sure I'm not in charge, but I like what I've learned about Tradition 2. Tradition 2 teaches me who is in charge. Tradition 2 states that for our group purpose, there's but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. Jan does not get to govern. And what does that mean to me? Well, the OA 12 and 12, Tradition 2, tells me that a loving God is expressed in the group conscience is in charge. It also states further on that when faced with a problem or challenge, the group needs to ask God for guidance to show us what is best for the group as a whole. We discuss the matter carefully, we vote on alternatives, and we trust that the decision we'll reach together is our higher power's will. And here's a real quick example. A couple of months ago, I went to a region meeting, and something was proposed to sell. I was the only one against it. I think there were 35 of us in the room. Someone made the motion, someone seconded the motion, we had discussion, I spoke against it, then we voted, and I was the only one who voted against it. So I got to have my say again, we voted again, and I was the only one that voted against it. And you know what? I was okay with that because I really do trust the group conscience, and I don't have to have my way to be okay when I disagree with something. I am going to support what we're going to do, and I'm okay with that. So that's what I've learned from this tradition and what recovery has done for me. I need to remember that I'm not in charge, and I also learned that neither is anybody else. We're all equals, and we have equal power to each other, new or old members. No one has the power to enforce any rules. There's no rules on members or the groups. I am currently, by the grace of God, and very grateful to do this, the intergroup chair of my intergroup, and I'm a rep and delegate and get to participate in region meetings. And I have the honor and privilege of attending 2 World Service Business Conference, and I'm getting to go to my 3rd one this year. And even though I have those positions, I don't have any more power than anyone else. We're all equals. It's important for me to remember when making the decision, it needs to be an informed decision, meaning I take into account and the group takes into account the information that is being given, and that for me especially, I need to keep an open mind and be teachable and listen and be flexible and be humble when thinking and praying about this problem or decision. This is for me especially, I need to be willing to do service and be willing to let go when my time of service comes to an end. In OA, we call that rotation of service. It gives everyone a chance to do something and get involved in OA. I know for me, when I do or give service, I feel part of instead of part out or in isolation. It's a great way to break isolation. And it also helps me with my self-esteem. I think the things really learn with tradition, too. The first thing that there really is a loving God, and that any person can be a trusted servant, and that a loving higher power is greater than any person, group, or trusted servant, that the direction for members and the groups come from this loving higher power. I learned no person is in charge or makes any decisions without a group conscience first. I get to share my opinion on issues, but then I need to be willing to let go of the results and trust the group and God that however it works out, it's the way it's supposed to be. It's what's best for all. I learned nothing is black and white and in stone. I can change my mind. Others can change their mind. The group can change their mind. It's important for me to watch out for judging others, taking others' inventory, or thinking I'm right and others are wrong. I truly believe that the group conscience is the ultimate authority. I also learned that all higher powers are welcome and respected in the group process. Love that. The group or myself does not have to have all the answers right away. It is important to make time, to take time, collect information that will be helpful about the issue, and pray before decisions are made. This is what is known as an informed group conscience. Everyone has a right to their opinion, pro or con, and it is really important for me to listen to everybody. It's really important for me to be, again, humble and open-minded and teachable and flexible and be willing to compromise when things don't go my way. And I think the thing I have to watch out the most in closing is I need to watch for being controlling and managing, being authoritative, dominating, manipulative, or I know it all. And last, I also learned that I can work tradition too outside of the room, such as with my family, my friends, my relatives, work, or any other activities. I'll give you an example. Couple things. My husband and I ride Harleys, and when we get together with our other friends in the program, we take a group conscience on where we're going to go. We never fight about where we're going to go, so that works great there. My husband is going to have surgery on Wednesday. He came home and said they told him he should get a recliner, and I'm thinking, what a waste of money. We don't need that. But you know what? What's best for the group? What's best for my husband? Yesterday we went out and bought a recliner. I'm great. I'm so happy he's going to have that recliner. That's my experience, strength, and hope with the traditions. My favorite question in the back of the book in Tradition 2 is I call it number 4. I gave some examples about when you feel different about something. It says, do we feel like we have to save face in group discussions, or can we all get along in good spirit with the group conscience, even if differed when in the beginning? So that's my question I am posing. Does anybody have any experience, strength, and hope on that? Or if something else came to mind when I was talking, please feel free to share that.
If you'd like to share at this point in the workshop, please just press *6 to unmute, identify yourself, and speak away.
Hey, everybody. This is Chris J. from Huntsville, Alabama. How you doing? And happy Valentine's Day. I had an experience a couple of years ago with my inner group where I felt very strongly about a particular issue. I don't exactly remember what it was, but and I was trying not to be controlling and forcing and only saying it one time. And as we listened to the discussion that then went around the table from everybody about this event, and it was some heated discussion as well. After listening to everybody else, it was like I thought to myself, thank goodness this issue did just not stay between my two ears, because after hearing the rest of the group, I completely rescinded my proposal, thanked the group graciously. We were able to move on in our business meeting, but it was a very strong experience of one of the first times realizing I don't know everything and I don't have all the answers, because that was a big part of my disease before OA. In tradition to both support, higher powers in charge. I had to find that higher power. I got to define my higher power in step 2 and then let that higher power be in charge through tradition 2. And I'm just really, really grateful. And I have learned that many, many, many times since then and had such a sense of peace after that happened. So I'm just real grateful for that. And I love how higher power is always in charge. And when I remember that, then I can relax and let whatever the process is, just let it go and know that God's going to bring good out of it. So thanks for letting me to share.
Thanks, Chris. Is there anyone else who'd like to share? There's no requirements to share on this meeting, on this workshop.
Hey, Stephanie, this is Cindy. May I share?
Thank you. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank the speaker. Thanks so much for sharing your story as well as your understanding of the tradition. I, too, have had a experience at Intergroup where I had a thought that I thought was really a very strong, good idea. I even went around ahead of time and talked to others who said, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. You're right. That is the right thing. We need to do that. And then I presented it. I should have had a clue. The other board members really weren't open to even bringing it up in front of the main body. But I plowed ahead. I was just sure I knew what was going on. It was devastating. It was devastating for my inner group because it polarized us. A lot of the people who said that they thought I had a good idea became uncomfortable when the other half of the room, when the conflict began. It was so obvious that it wasn't welcome. And what came after it, there was a committee formed, and I tried to go and present my side at the committee, and I actually acted out very badly. It just was awful. But the other side of the coin is when we had the vote, when the committee made their presentation, now I knew by then that my proposal was dead, that it wasn't going to be accepted. But, I didn't leave. I didn't walk away. I said, well, if we're going to do that, then it looks like I'll need to contribute extra so we have enough money to do what we want to continue to do. I need to continue to participate, and I did. And there were people that left. There were bad feelings, but it eventually became healed. It eventually became clear. In fact, a few years later, I became a big advocate of the thing that I had been opposed to. Not a major advocate that I think we should do what we're doing, but simply I began to participate in taking care of what we had agreed upon. And I was able to do that with an open heart. And so I learned something. And what I really learned was it really is important to pay attention to what's going on in the group conscience. Even though you're sure you have the right idea and that you're even led by your higher power, pay attention if only one or two people agree with you, because that's how you know if you're out in left field somewhere. But the inner group has gotten stronger, and in some ways there's more unanimity than there used to be, and they're out there trying new things and new ideas. And so I'm grateful that was the result of my experience. So pay attention to who's really in charge, and God, and trust that He will lead us rather than thinking that I have to be the one that everybody needs to be reliant upon. And with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Before we move into halftime, is there anyone else who would like to share on what we've spoken about already in this workshop? Tradition 2 and Concept 2, who's in charge? All right, we'll move into halftime then. Again, thank you so much, Jan, for a wonderful presentation. Very much enjoyed hearing your story. Just as a reminder, this workshop is being recorded and will be posted on the OA website, a podcast page, as well as some other podcast feeds. If you speak, it is considered implied consent to have your voice in your recording posted. So please, to preserve your anonymity, use only your first name or a fictitious name when you share. All right. Tradition 7, I'm going to remind people about that, is that we are self-supporting through our own contributions. If you do contribute, and I hope that you will, please use special workshop number 82278 when making your donation. This workshop has no direct expenses. The World Service Office needs our support to continue our fellowship. You can go to the OA website and click on contributions, or you can mail into Overeaters Anonymous. All right, kind of concludes our middle of the workshop stuff. We're going to move on to the second speaker. I want to welcome Deborah from Region 1. If you would like, Deborah, first press *6 to unmute and go ahead and start. Thank you.
Hi, let me make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can, loud and clear. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Deborah, and I'm a recovering compulsive overeater. I'm really glad to be here, although I have to confess I'm scared to death because this is the first time I've done a podcast. So everybody be kind, okay? First of all, let me do a little qualification. I've been in OA since June of 1991, which makes 25 years in a few months. It's been a long and slow journey for me. I have currently 11 years and 2 months of continuous abstinence, at this point a 50-plus pound weight loss, and I'm continuing a very slow weight loss from a top weight of about 265. I believe I've been a compulsive eater all my life, and it took me a long, long time to get to OA. I was 39 before I showed up in the rooms. It took me 7 years to figure out that sugar was even an issue for me. So I'm a very, very slow learner or an extremely fast forgetter, one or the other, maybe both. It took another 7 years to get reliably abstinent from it, and my last binge was 2 weeks long at the end of January in 2005. So I'm really grateful to be at this point in my recovery where I've got years of continuous abstinence and momentum in my program to get me through all the stuff that life has thrown at me, which has been quite a bit. This program has shown me how to deal with life on life's terms without losing my serenity or my abstinence, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I got here through another 12-step program and a wise therapist. My sponsor in that other 12-step program was a member of this fellowship and told me about it. She knew I was a compulsive eater long before I did. It was in the back of my mind for probably a year before I went to my therapist because I was seeing her about my eating problem. I've had this issue with food my entire life, and I'm sure I've been a compulsive eater my entire life. It just took me until I was 39 to figure out what the issue really was. I went to the therapist one day. She said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you know, my job's going well. My kid's doing fine in school. He's not in trouble right now. The alcoholic is out of my life. And I'm not eating compulsively," which is probably the first time in my life I used that word to apply to my eating. And then I stopped and I looked at her and I said, "Do you think I could be a compulsive eater?" And she just kind of laughed and nodded. Yeah, we think so. Well, I knew what to do about that, and I knew when the next meeting was that was near me. And I went to that meeting, and I haven't stopped. That was a long time ago. There's been a lot going on in that last 25 years. I think I cried my first 6 meetings because I didn't realize there were other people out there who did those crazy things with food that I did. But there were, and they were talking about it, and they had a way not to do it. my very first November in program, I sat in a meeting and listened to somebody say, well, later this week, it's going to be Thursday, and my protein will be turkey. And I had never in my life thought of Thanksgiving dinner that way before. So it was quite eye-opening that there was this whole other way of interacting with food. I did my program in very, very tiny baby steps. That's what my higher power knew that I needed to do. But over the course of a lot of small changes and a lot of hard work, I worked steps. I had to work through some pretty serious early issues in my life. I still have a lot of stuff that goes on, but I have tools to use to deal with them. Let me do the what it's like now. What happened was I cried for 6 meetings, and I stayed in the meetings. I never stopped going to meetings. I may have been abstaining. I may have been relapsing. I may have been, crazy in any number of ways. I might have had life going on all around me, but I kept going to meetings. And slowly but surely, I also worked through the steps. I started doing service. I started using the telephone. I started making friends in program. And what it's like now is that I have a life of sane and happy usefulness surrounded by a whole bunch of people who love me dearly and will help whenever I need it, and who I am willing to help in whatever ways I can, and who I love dearly. And how much better can it get than that? Does it matter the things that go on in life around me? Not really. It doesn't impact how I interact with my food. I have a food plan. I commit it daily. I follow it. I have a food sponsor. I have a step sponsor. And for me, sponsoring is a very basic form of service. I am a sponsor as well, and I work daily with my sponsees. I daily commit my food and my 10th step. There's a whole pile of stuff. Somebody told me when I first came in that I would be doing all these things to support my program. I probably would have told them they were crazy and run screaming because I wasn't willing to do that back then. But I am now. There's a whole lot of stuff that I do now that never would have occurred to me that had anything to do with food. It's like doing my 10th step every day. It really does make a difference in whether the compulsion pops up in my brain again. 98% of the time, the compulsion is lifted completely from my life. I can have foods in the house that are issues for me, and I don't want them. The other 2% of the time, I have a lot of tools and things to help relieve that obsession, and I have a higher power who's very active in my life. So I'm going to keep doing the things that I'm doing today. What am I doing today to support my program? Most of it is service. I'm here to tell you service saves my butt, and that's why I'm really big on the traditions and the concepts, because they talk about how we do service. I have given service at every level at this point in my life. I have not served on the World Service Board of Trustees. I have some physical limitations. That service would probably kill me with the travel. But I am on the region board for Region 1, the region treasurer. I have served at my intergroup in almost every board position, I think, except newsletter editor. I've served at meetings as treasurers, secretary, key holder, lifeline rep. I serve as a sponsor. I have been a representative at a regional assembly many times and a delegate at World Service. And that leads us into Concept 2, which is about how the World Service Business Conference is the effective conscience of OA as a whole. Because OA is a 12-step fellowship, we're sort of built on that upside-down thing where it's the members who are in charge. Each service body level, as you go, is providing services to the ones above. So that at the level of the World Service Business Conference, it's a gathering for us all to put our heads together and figure out what's the right thing to do for OA as a whole. And I have been a delegate many times to World Service Business Conference. The first one just about blew me away because I wasn't as clear then about things like I don't have to do it all myself. I need to be quiet and listen. These are all things I learned, especially at World Service, but also at Region Assembly and at Intergroup. But especially at World Service Business Conference, there are lots of points of view that aren't mine. They might be right. I might not be right. I have gone into the business meetings at World Service with a particular thought in mind about some question that's come before the body. And after listening to the various arguments for and against, I have changed my mind about that, thinking about what is right for OA as a whole. And I think it's important to remember that World Service Business Conference isn't dictating to anybody. The Board of Trustees has no power to dictate either. I was there to bring my intergroups and meetings and fellow OAs in my local area to bring their perspective to World Service Business Conference. Doing that service helped me grow enormously and exposed me to so many wonderful people with so much recovery. It's like bathing in recovery. And if you haven't done service at a level above the meeting level yet, I encourage you to do that, because how else will we get a wide-ranging group conscience? I was asked to think about something that is in my own experience that shows the concept of conscience, the principle of conscience in my recovery. One of the things that came to mind is, as the region treasurer, I'm the one who gets to ask the region assembly, which is much like World Service is for all of OA. Our regional assembly is the same sort of conscience of our fellowship for our region. And I have to come up with a budget for the coming year. Now, the committee, who's really the ones who are in charge, not me, of creating a proposed budget, and then we sit down in front of the assembly with the budget up on a projection screen and me with my spreadsheet at the computer controlling it, and it opens up to the fellowship. And they have a lot of questions, they have a lot of insight, they have suggestions, and eventually they're the ones who get to say what money we're going to spend on what. Not me, not even the committee. The assembly as a whole is the conscience, and they're the ones who are going to have to go back to their meetings and their intergroups and talk about what we decided and why we decided it. And that process, the first year I was treasurer, it terrified me because I thought I had to do it right and do it perfectly and get it all myself. And that is not how it works. I didn't have to do that. After I walked through the first one, the next one was easier. It's sometimes frustrating because sometimes there are a lot of questions, and sometimes there's a lot of things that don't make sense to me, but they make sense to somebody else. And if I listen, it can make sense to me. Over the course of however long we spend on that, which is anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, we come up with what seems to be the best thing for regional OA as a whole. And I can't do that on my own. My committee can't even do it. It takes all of us. And that is the clearest example for me to go up or down, actually, to World Service. In my experience at World Service Business Conference, there have been a number of proposals brought forth that I, as an individual, did not see any good reason for them whatsoever. Made no sense. We still had it on the agenda, and we still talked about it. In the course of talking about it, I found out I could understand what was going on, why this proposal was brought to the body, and what might be the good of it. As I said, I have changed my mind in the past. For me, World Service Business Conference was a great deal about learning how to listen and shut up and not try to convince everybody that I'm right. That humbling aspect is part of what informs my whole recovery. I have to be humble enough to listen. So it kind of all goes all the way up to me as an individual OA, this whole conscience idea. Because I have to be willing to listen to other people's experience, strength, and hope in order to get help for myself. I can't help myself. I can only ask for help and then listen. And I ask for help from my higher power, but I also ask for help from all the people around me. And that leads me to the question I'd like you to think about as we open up for sharing here very shortly. how can I contribute to the conscience of OA in all my OA interactions? Now, I don't have to go to World Service to do this. I can contribute to the conscience of OA in every OA interaction I have, whether it's one-on-one on the phone, at a meeting, at my intergroup, at Region. How can you do this? Thank you. And with that, I'll open it up for sharing.
We are ready for sharing, and the way that anyone that's on the line who'd like to share can do that is just press *6 to unmute. And I want to remind folks that if they do share, please use only your first name or a fictitious name, as this is going to be recorded and used in the podcast. So please feel free to contribute. We've had a lot of great ideas. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Hi, this is Tina. May I share?
Please, go ahead, Tina.
Hi, this is Tina. I'm a recovering compulsive overeater committed to abstinence, and I'd like to thank both Jan and Deb, both their qualifications and their discussions about Tradition 2 and Concept 2 were excellent. I was sitting here listening and remembering when I voted against my own motion after having listened to what everybody else had to say, which before program was a very novel experience. So in terms of the question that Deb asked, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's within my individual meeting, whatever situation, what can I bring to it? The two principles I think that we're talking about, one is that I need to trust and rely that the group conscience will prevail and that there is a higher power within the room. Sometimes in my own mind I invite him in to my heart so that I can do what's best or think what's best. And the other thing is the listening, really, really listening as opposed to trying to figure out what I want to say. Professionally, I've been manager. I've been in charge of this, that, and the other thing. I'm single, so I'm the director of my universe. And it's a challenge sometimes to be in a group and listen, because I always know what's best. It's just convincing other people of that. Through OA, I've learned, as someone else has said, to listen and to be quiet. And as I said, there have been times I've voted against my own motion, but it's the trusting. And also the what I heard somewhere, standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. There's been a lot of work in OA through the years as we evolve, rather than tearing it all apart, standing on the shoulders, trusting and listening to everyone to take what we need and leave the rest and progress. I'm not sure that's coming out correctly, but there have been motions that I voted against, and the group conscience said yes, regardless of the level. It has been my responsibility, trust in my higher power, that was group conscience, that the group, all of us listened, and that was a group conscience. It's my responsibility to then honor that decision, honor that definition, honor that philosophy. We're coming up on Unity Day. That comes into play, too, in terms of our Commonwealth. What comes first, personal recovery, depends upon OA unity. But that doesn't mean uniformity. And there again, for me, is the trust. I need to trust that whether it's 5 people or 200 people, we're here for the same reason, for the good of OA. And my responsibility as an individual, as a delegate, as a whatever, is to listen and to be open, and to be open to what my higher power wants me to hear. I was once told, Tim, you're not always right. I've probably told that more than once. But anyway, I'm not always right. When I'm talking about something, I think I'm right until I listen. Tradition 2, Concept 2 are just so crucial. I don't want OA to just exist. I want it to thrive and be alive. And these two spiritual principles help me to do my 2 cents to help it. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Tina. Would someone else like to share? Just press *6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Sally. What I liked was the emphasis on teachability, humility, open-mindedness, flexibility, being able to compromise. And I really love the stories about, totally changing my mind and having a different outcome than when the group conference started. And I think that's really what it's about. It's about letting go of results, letting higher power be in charge of that, and to be open to change and open to movement. And I love the thing about standing on the shoulders of those before us, continuing with the progress, the forward motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. Is there someone else who would like to share before we close the workshop? We have a few minutes left. Hi, my name's Stephanie. I'm going to take a few minutes to share. I, too, have had an opportunity to do service at a number of different levels within Overeaters Anonymous, and for that I'm very, very grateful. One of the things that I was thinking about when we were talking about tradition and concept 2 was the idea of substantial unanimity, that when we're trying to make a decision, who can garner the most votes, and then that's the winner, that overriding, overbridging idea of what's the best for OA as a whole. I came up through the region before I got to World Service, and when I got to World Service, I was really surprised because I thought we'd thought about it, we talked about it in my region, which is Region 8, and we really knew what we wanted, and that's what I was going to go forward with. And that idea of what's the best for OA as a whole, that it's not parochial, it's not what's the best for the southeastern United States. Maybe I need to take into account what's happening in Australia or China or Missouri. There's so much that can be learned through service. The traditions, I have really needed those to the max when I have begun to do service. The steps are really important, but that idea of how to work in a group and be a responsible participant within Overeaters Anonymous, the traditions and also the concepts as I'm learning more about them are really helpful. So with that, I'll close. We have one last call for anyone who would like to share. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for participating, and particularly to thank our speakers, Jan and Deborah, who did such a wonderful job on our Tradition 2 and Concept 2. And remind you that the opinions expressed here are those of the individual OA members and do not represent OA as a whole. I invite you to return next month on the second Sunday, which is March the 13th, where our topic will be All Together Now. We are reaching out our hands, and we'll be discussing Tradition and Concept 3, which has the principles of trust and identity. Please help me close the workshop with the Serenity Prayer. If you would all press *6 to unmute, we'll go ahead and do that, and then after we're complete, I will stop the recording. So if you would, just press *6 to unmute. Serenity Prayer. God. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you all so much.